Do sex addicts show remorse? That's our topic today. And it's a big one. If you're living with someone who has a sex addiction and you're wondering why they don't seem to get it, or they don't seem to get broken, or they don't seem to really understand, you need to watch this. If you have yet to subscribe to our channel, please do. We have so much on this topic, literally hundreds of videos that can help you in so many different ways in your life. So hit subscribe. If you have a question about this or anything else, put it in the box. We get back to you as soon as possible on that. Well, do sex addicts show remorse? Now, this is a big question, and usually the people watching this are the spouses. So I'm going to address this to you, but I hope some of you who are sex addicts can eavesdrop on this conversation and maybe benefit from this. There is a great video if you are the addict called Helping Her Heal. If you're the intimacy anorexic, there's one called Helping My Spouse Heal from My Intimacy Anorexia. We get a lot into the things that are helpful for you to help your spouse heal. So let's talk about this. You know, remorse is a big topic, and here's a couple things we need to consider. And as we go through this, I'm going to probably hit a couple of videos that I've done that kind of touch on the subject. One is when you marry a child, don't expect a man right away. I'll explain why I'm recommending that in a minute. Another one is why men lie. Because early in recovery, oftentimes they'll still cover their tracks and you'll be fishing for information. You're like, why don't they just get it and just become an adult? Well, let me explain why that is. When you have an active addiction, and I'm in no way justifying their behavior, I'm just telling you, as a psychologist, with almost 40 years of experience working with addicts, and I'm a recovering addict for 39 years. So I get this in so many different levels, and working with more than probably 4,000 or 5,000 women who've experienced the partner betrayal trauma, and they're trying to work through the relationship, and yet he is still like he just doesn't get it, Dr. Weiss. I've heard that at least 1,000 times. And when is he going to get it, Dr. Weiss? Well, let's talk about that. The first thing is when you have an addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, work, porn, whatever the issue is, you stop developing in three major categories: spiritually, emotionally, and morally. And so what happens here is the soul actually gets arrested in its development. Now, empathy is a very evolved emotion. So the addict has been freezing their emotions for usually years or decades. They're usually stuck somewhere between 12 and 14 years old emotionally. That's why so many women like yourself that are watching this have said to me, Dr. Weiss, it feels like I have an extra child. He acts like a child. He rants and raves. He doesn't take responsibility. He doesn't think about the future. He can't plan. You know, I'm picking up his messes everywhere. And I'm having to tell him that lying's not good. Like, this is simple stuff like thou shalt not lie. Like, why am I having to spend my time doing all this maternal stuff on this man who's 40, 50, 60, or even 70 years old, Dr. Weiss? It's wearing me out. Well, I can hear your pain, and you're not alone. And it is normal. When you marry a child, don't expect a man right away. Now, it takes a while, and there are conditions. If they are not doing recovery, they never grow up. And it just gets worse, and you're stuck to either decide to stay with that dysfunction, adapt to that dysfunction in the way you can adapt to it, either healthily or unhealthily, or leave. They're not giving you the choice of healthy ever after. Okay, they're giving you the choice of dysfunctional ever after. And that's your choice whether you adapt to that or leave that situation. So their development arrests them from emotional development. We have a book called Emotional Fitness. I give that to a lot of the addicts in the first couple months of recovery because it is a factor in them developing quicker emotions. We have an exercise called the 3 dailies that was in the marriage books and in recovery books for the addicts to actually do 2 feelings a day with you, 2 praises with you, and prayer with you. Why? Spiritual development, emotional development, attachment to the spouse helps this process significantly. So if they're not doing any of that, their development is going to be somewhere closer to the end of the year mark. And if they're not doing recovery, which is the 5 C's, pray, read, call, meeting, pray, if they are not in a group, they're not probably doing recovery. They're probably not going to mature, and they're not going to mature as fast for sure, because you mature when you're around more mature people than yourself in any category. If you want to get physically in shape, you hang around people that are in shape. If you want to get rich, hang around people that are rich. You want to get smart on an area, hang around people that are really smart in that area. If you want recovery, get around recovery people who are doing it and successfully doing it. We have phone groups that are, for partners. We have phone groups for addicts. And if you're a partner, I encourage you to do the same thing. Don't focus so much on his recovery that you don't take responsibility to heal your own. But the remorse thing, do they feel sorry for what they've done? Yes, they probably do. If they got caught, it might be slower, for sure. But they're going to feel sorry, or they're going to have pain about it at an adolescent level, not at an adult level. And so expecting them to be an adult is like expecting them to bench press 300 pounds, and they're not capable of pushing that 300-pound weight to prove that they love you. And it's not because they don't love you. It's because they're immature. And this immaturity, it can be expedited by doing the feelings exercise with you, the emotional fitness, getting in recovery, and it can really move that closer to 8 months or maybe a little less than that if they're actually doing the work. If they're not doing the work, it could be more than a year. It could be never happen because they're not developing emotion, they're not thawing out. Okay, normally if they just thaw out from their addiction, it can take about a year for them to become emotionally, savvy enough to be able to empathize. If they do the recovery work, it's usually quicker than that, usually 8 months or so, but then they're really feeling the pain because they're doing their step work, they're doing the stuff that makes them evaluate their behavior, and they're going, wow, I need to really look at this. And so they can empathize better. There's another thing that we call, there's a DVD on disclosure, which we talk about them doing a disclosure with you. There's different types, but one of those disclosure is a validating amend, where they validate your pain. And they need to be a little emotionally mature to do that. Don't just, have them do that in the first month because they're not mature enough to even guess at what you're feeling. So do they feel remorse? Yes, and it grows. But it's not going to feel like he's broken, Dr. Weiss. He's repented. He's a changed man. After he got off his knees and crying on my feet and begging me to stay, he's so different, Dr. Weiss. It's like, how can he do that? And then even hours or a day or two later, be so immature, taking no responsibilities for his behavior, blaming the other woman, blaming society, blaming his cell phone on why he's looking at porn or why he's cheating and why he's lying, and not. How can he do that? Because he's immature. Now, if you're a mother and you've raised an adolescent male or female, between the ages of 12 and 16 and 25, there's development. And depending if they have addictions, it's different. But you're patient with them because they're going to grow out of it. And here's what I'd recommend. If they're doing recovery, they'll grow out of it, most likely, unless there's a disorder, a psychological disorder. And like when people do intensives in our office, they can get psychological disorders, and that can really help. But to expect them to have the mature depth of pain that you would have, if you did that, now, first of all, you wouldn't do that because you're morally stronger. You're a moral adult. There are absolute rights and wrongs, and there are consequences, and you believe that with all your heart. They don't believe all that, okay? They're in object relationship. They're immature. They can use people. People have no value, and they don't think they should have consequences. That's the object relationship system. If you want to know more about that, there's a DVD called Unstuck. And I reference these materials because we have a whole catalog of stuff that can help you understand what you don't understand. Because if you're a spiritual, moral, and emotionally mature woman, or a man for that matter, you don't get it. And it takes me a while to explain all that needs to be understood for you to be able to understand that they are not you. And they are not mature like you. They don't think like you. They don't operate like you. They have a different operating system than you do. And for you to take care of yourself because you've experienced partner betrayal trauma. That's a book and a DVD with all the statistics of PTSD that you're experiencing, depression and self-esteem and sexuality issues and weight issues and sleep issues and all these things. Those are real issues that you need to address so that you can heal. And it's very important that you heal. So if you're not in a group, call my office, 719-278-3708. Get in a group, get in workbooks, get in counseling, do what you need to do so that if he does get better, You've done the work to heal, and he's done the work to do his recovery. And that's a wonderful way that couples can heal and recover. But if you are in a situation where you're not recovering and he recovers, then there's going to be that gap later on in about a year and a half that you're going to have to catch up, and you don't want to be that person. But if he's not doing recovery, you doing recovery will get you stronger, more abilities to boundaries, and your self-esteem will improve. You won't take any responsibility for his behavior, and you'll be a stronger person, and you will be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish with you and your family. So do they feel empathy? It evolves. Yes, and it evolves. It is not mature empathy in the beginning, and it can't be. So my hope is that you can be patient in the process as they mature. I've had this conversation with thousands of women, and that's why I recommend, when you marry a man, when you marry a child, don't expect a man right away, because it gives them the understanding that he's not just being a jerk. He's not just being a narcissist, okay? And there's a DVD on narcissism, sex addiction, intimacy, anorexia. And understanding there's a big difference between narcissism and an immature addict. Actually, in the DSM, which is what we use to diagnose narcissism, there's a few cautions in there that if someone has an active addiction, not to diagnose them with narcissism. And unless they take a psychological test, you don't want to do that. So I hope this has been helpful for you to understand that empathy's a mature emotion, and they're not mature. As they mature, if they do recovery, they will have that moment. I usually say when the woman stops crying is when he starts crying. And I've seen thousands of men really get it, really get broken, but it usually takes 8 months to a year if they're really working at recovery. And then when they get it deep inside of them. They know that you're the hero. You're the one that saved the marriage, because you're the one that was able to be strong enough to carry them as they mature through the process. And there is that day when that happens if they're doing recovery. Now, if you have yet to subscribe to our channel, please do. Hit the button. If there's a question you have, put it in the box. And if you're not getting help, call my office. Do an intensive. Do the neuromodulation. Get your brain working again. Do the things that partners need to do. Be in groups. Do the workbooks. Get the things you need to. Invest in yourself, because partner betrayal trauma is a real thing statistically. And I don't want you to suffer from that any more than you have to. I'm Dr. Doug Weiss. I really want you to take your next step. If you haven't subscribed, do that. Question, do that. And if you need help, reach out. You are so worth it.